We are live,
All right.
even though,
Oh, yeah, vamp for a minute.
So we have to vamp.
yeah.
How about if I do some magic?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Pull something out of your ear.
Out of my rear.
No, I said out of your
Out of
ear.
your
Out of your ear.
Your
It's easy, out of your rear.
Yeah, so, as we just give everybody a minute to switch over to the new live stream.
They need a minute. You know, sometimes there's technical things that
There
come up.
is.
It's like
There is.
always. It just goes to show you, there's always something.
There is.
If
And
it's not one thing, it's another.
Okay. Yeah.
How many people put in questions for this, Dylan?
We actually only got 3 this time. I usually get quite a bit more than that, but then there were,
Maybe nobody wanted to ask
Right.
us any questions.
yeah, that's possible.
So,
Well, you're
Oh,
live
those
because I've got you, right?
Those
So
butts, anything.
right now there's only 11 of us on.
That's okay. There'll be more.
I told them to come.
Yeah, we got, so we're cool.
So
We got a
yeah.
bunch of people. So anyway,
Or we do the intro.
So my name is Dylan. This is Dylan Talks Tone. Every Thursday at 5 o'clock somewhere. This week it's Colorado. We do an FAQ, and I figured that since we were at a guitar building place, i.e.
Factory.
a factory of guitars, i.e. Texas Toast Guitars, that we would let you answer questions about stuff that I don't do. We talk about wires and pots and caps and.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
I can talk about pop.
I always thought that you were a guitar builder. Why did I think that?
Because I build a few.
Okay.
I do. I build a few. I build probably 6 or 7 a year right
Okay.
now. I have 3 in progress.
Cool.
Yeah. I just don't have a full shop, and so I have to partner with others to get said work done.
Okay.
And then I take care of the final everything.
I think I speak
So-
for all of us here at Texas Toast when I say if you want to come here and work, you can certainly do
I would be that this may happen. This may happen very, very. It might be a thing.
that. Okay.
We may chat.
Although I
about
don't
that
think
later.
Mrs. Tone likes the dry climate.
I think she's getting used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I think she's getting used to it. She said she's not passing out when she like walks down the street.
Walks
you know,
up 2 steps.
that
That was
sort of
it for
thing.
me. I was like, ah.
Yeah, I
Only
mean when
12 more to go.
last year when we came, or the first time we went to high elevation, she was like, "This sucks. Like I don't ever want to do this again. Headaches, the whole thing." But I think we've fairly well
Got a lot of people commenting on
established
Mrs.
that.
Tone.
So anyway, we got some questions that did come in, and what I typically do is I prioritize the ones that come in over on Patreon.com because they're part of the community over
Sure.
there. They gave us a few bucks, and so I always like to make sure that they get priority.
Okay.
So, and this dude has the coolest name ever. His name is Zoltan. Yeah, and I believe he's from Belgium. He actually is the one that bought me the EMGs for the.
Oh, cool.
For that, yeah.
Isn't Zoltan the wizard or the fortune teller guy that made Tom Hanks little? Or big?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Zoltar.
Zoltar. Oh, yeah, that's the one in the booth, yeah.
But Zoltan was the guy who was the cult leader on Dude, Where's My Car?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And they had the thing that they
Dude,
did.
where's
Yeah.
my car?
Sweet.
So
Dude,
he has a few questions about the Les Ply.
Okay.
And I think it's because he wants to know. Well, he wants to try some stuff. So
Okay.
first of all, he wants to know why is the binding so big around the neck joint?
Okay. I know what he's talking about. Chris, I'm gonna let you answer
The reason is because a Les Paul has a bunch of different angles that
Carve.
happen on it
On the carb
and
top.
on the carb top, and it ends up thicker there because as it mustaches up towards the neck, you need more binding there. So the binding is straight across the whole guitar.
Yeah.
But where the neck is, the body's actually taller there.
And
Is that a good?
yeah, that's excellent. So there's 2 ways that you can bind a Les Paul. There's the new way, which is where everything is the same. In other words, it starts from the back and goes up to a certain point, and the binding follows that. And then the old school way, like in '59, the binding actually rode around the perimeter of the top. And so if you look at an old Les Paul or one that's done in the same way that's new, you can see a little sliver of maple. You can see binding, and then a little sliver of maple, and then the mahogany starts.
Because it actually rode up
It
right
rode-
there.
Yeah, so it used the top carve as its bearing surface rather than the bottom of the guitar as the bearing surface.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can do it, and on that one, there's a special tool. It's okay.
I can see the
On that
thickness
one there,
of the top though.
yeah.
That's right.
So that we have a special tool that we use to actually follow the contour of the top. And on that one, I just chucked it up in the pin router and just went for it. So
Actually,
it's considerably easier to do.
Are you speaking about the copy carver for copy?
No, I'm talking about the pin router. So we set the body on the base, the table of the pin router, and set the depth of the binding rabbit cutter, and just did it all in one shot,
Gotcha.
rather than set up the tool that kind of rides around the contour of the top.
And also on that particular guitar, it doesn't have a body and a top.
Yeah, it doesn't have
It's
a top.
all
Yeah.
1,000 pieces of plywood.
Mm-hmm.
So it.
Have you counted how many there are?
I have not. I'm sure that somebody will, now that you said that out loud,
Yeah.
look at one of the thumbnails for the videos and count how many stripes, and please let us know.
No, what they'll do is go, you should have a giveaway for whoever guesses the right number.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
If
I
they
say.
knew
Mhm.
how difficult it is to build a guitar out of plywood, I did not. When I said, hey, I want to do that,
Uh-huh.
I had no idea that every piece of that guitar would have to be modified and massaged and
Yeah.
worked in a way that normal guitars don't need that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was much more difficult than I anticipated.
Someone said they wanted a applying V, which I think
Applying
was
V.
really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, there's many, like an explier.
Exply.
Yeah, I like the Explier.
I like the
yeah.
explier. Yeah, I think Ply Authentic has to
Apply
catch on.
authentic is a thing.
It has to catch
That's
on.
really good.
Yeah.
Zoltan had actually 3 questions. So
Oh,
the second
okay.
one is, I think this is probably for Chris. What masking tape did you use on the binding? I've been looking at, it looks different from the ordinary one that never sticks to my bindings. So what's special about
So
that?
that's 3M automotive
Yeah,
masking or tape. It's a lot like electrical tape.
it's a vinyl.
Yeah, it's vinyl. It'll stretch, so that's pretty good. But yeah, you can get it on Amazon or from just about any car place. It's blue.
I know what he's talking about. I've used it many times in the automotive side of stuff. I'll put a link in
Yeah.
the video.
Yeah,
We
and
also use the FHM tape we get from Mike. as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, we've used some other stuff too, and I think the secret to all of this is doing a good job degreasing the surface before you try to tape, because if you don't get all the oils off it, the tape won't stick.
You know what? People have asked of this a lot in the last couple days. Should I mask or should I scrape? And I think this is a great opportunity to talk about masking binding versus scraping binding.
I like to mask it because if I don't like how it's going, I can peel it up and do it again without causing any harm to the project. Versus scraping, if you mis-scrape a section, you have to pretty much start over. You can't, there's no going back after scraping it.
And we used to scrape.
Yeah, yeah.
And it sucked.
Yeah, and I like the crisp line that I can get. I can get a really, really good crisp line all the way around it. I like that the tape is its own straight edge in a lot of ways. So doing like the bottom of that Les Paul body, it takes like 2 minutes to mask the binding around the bottom edge.
Yeah.
And it only takes like maybe 5 minutes to mask the top. It's really easy to do.
There was a video that I think Stu Mack did in conjunction with some Gibson custom shop scraper guy about how the only way to get a really crisp line is with scraping. Yeah, and that's total horseshit. I think that if you're using lacquer and you spray it on super dry, you can scrape a line. But whoever that guy was, and it'll show, someone will tell me, I would like to see that guy scrape,
Urethane?
well, no, I was gonna, a metal flake. Yeah, let me shoot this guitar with metal flake and get it all looking good. Now scrape it, monkey boy, because you won't be able to do it.
Yeah, and I've watched videos of the painters at Gibson,
Mhm.
and their sunburst is literally a pass.
Yeah.
So it's one super thin, super dry coat of lacquer, and they go,
Yeah,
and that's it.
yeah.
And then they move on to the next one.
So,
and
so very thin.
very thin
Yeah.
and very, which would make it a little bit easier. Scraping's hard,
Yeah.
and scraping, even, you know, I'll occasionally have to scrape a spot where the tape peeled up or something like that, and it's tricky and it's an art form.
But we
all
fell
to
for that
itself.
whole you have to scrape it thing, and
Yeah.
that was horseshit.
Yeah, I like to mask, custom painter's mask, auto guy's mask.
Those lowrider paint jobs
Yeah.
have way more masking
There's
than
no-
any Gibson Les Paul ever thought about having.
There's no scraping there.
No, and it's
Yeah.
like
And-
super cool.
And actually speaking to the quality of the tape, so if he's talking about tape not sticking, I'm going automotive on this, my brain
Mhm.
here, but the blue 3M stuff that you have is really good and it works. There's also some cheaper stuff like that greenish yellow paper based
Yeah.
fine line tape, which a lot of people will use, and it doesn't hold a curve as well.
Yeah,
You
it doesn't
can't-
stretch.
Yeah, and
It's neat because it's so thin, it doesn't like have a lip, but.
right. It's very difficult to get a clean, consistent line with that.
Yeah.
So stepping up the quality of the tape will help what you're talking about. It'll make your life easier.
Did we answer the second question?
That is the second
Okay.
question. The third question is what compound did you use for sanding, parentheses, that white powdery stuff? That was actually just sealer as it was coming off.
That was actually
Yeah.
just the finish that is, yeah, they call it fluffing.
Sloughing, isn't it? That's what I
It
do with my
fluffs.
feet.
It
Well, I can
fluffs
answer
really
that
well.
because I did it.
Yeah, it's just the
I used
material.
220 dry sandpaper. I used 320 dry sandpaper, and then I went to 600, and then I went to a red Scotch-Brite.
And you had a really good time doing it.
Well, you know, and then I used a gray Scotch-Brite,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then we waxed it. You know, you know what I was thinking the whole time is all the people that say urethane guitars don't have as much tone because there's so much material.
Thick, gloppy paint. Yeah.
But the funny thing is, I know that I took it all back off.
Yeah.
Yeah, any thick spots are not
Yeah,
thick
they're
anymore.
gone. Yeah.
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 The I think a lot of people see, you know, these horror stories of like finishes that get a chip and there's a great big thick patch of paint that comes off, and that's really that's not the fault of the material. It's the fault of the workforce that did it. You can put it on really thick,
Yeah.
but you don't have to. So yeah, you don't need to indict the product as much as you indict the import guitar factories that, for a lot of reasons, kind of have to do it like that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
I think a lot of people will say, I had a Kramer in 1985 and it had this much paint on it.
Yeah.
But the other thing too, and I bring this up in videos a lot, is technology has changed. So going back to auto stuff, I have a lot of experience with that. In the mid and late 80s, when everybody's trying to get rid of, move to lower VOCs, like lower solids paints, everybody was screwing up. The paint wasn't as good.
Yeah.
And you did have to do crazy stuff that you don't have to do now. And what you're spraying today here is not the same stuff that they were putting on guitars in 1985.
Well, actually,
No.
it's not too different though. It's not very
Well,
different from
no.
Fuller Plast, which was around in the '60s,
Yeah,
right?
I think people, so Fender finishes aren't urethane, they're polyester. The
Right.
clear is polyester.
Which so now our
So our
sealer
sealer's
is polyester. Yeah.
But that's where we stop with the
Yeah.
that stuff, and it gets sanded back, and then we use urethane, base coat, and top coat.
Yeah.
but like Fender uses on their stuff that's not lacquer, it's polyester clear coat,
Okay.
which can go on a little bit thicker. And the deal is if they sand through, they got to send that guitar back through the system. So they put it on thicker so that the chances of it getting buffed through is much less. And they have a system that runs those guitars through paint several times before it's ready to be, buffed and sanded and all that other stuff. So that's why they put it on thicker.
A pet peeve of mine too is and this is an internet forum problem, is, hey, I need you to finish my guitar in nitro, I don't like poly. And I'm like, well, nitro, I know what they're talking about. What they really mean is nitrocellulose, and what they really mean is polyester. But they don't know that. All they know is the word nitro. Like somehow nitro is this magic concoction that makes guitars sound good. How much nitrocellulose is in the actual lacquer these days? They don't-
7%.
That's a high
That's
one. Right?
Yeah, Gibson actually pays
Yeah.
pretty steep penalty every year to be able to use 7%
Yeah.
nitro.
So your Balin lacquers and your Sherwin-Williams lacquer,
They're all about 5%.
4 or 5, yeah. But people throw these terms around that they
That's
don't know what they're talking about. And so when you say, well, we're going to spray a polyester, I don't want any poly. Well, okay, wait a minute. You don't know what you're talking about because, here's how you can tell when people don't know what they're talking about, when they use the term nitro and poly. They have no clue what they're talking about. And when anyone says that to me, I know I'm talking to a doofus.
I always think of funny cars when someone says nitro.
Nitro
Yeah.
burning funny
Nitro
car.
burning funny car.
Exactly.
Sunday.
Greg, one more question from Patreon, and then I got another one from YouTube. Greg wants to know on the mud flap guitar,
Mhm.
and I don't know, maybe if you could do this in a different video or you want to do it now. He would like to know. He wants to know. Let's see, a parts list and installation of how you put LEDs in the mud flap guitar. This has nothing to do with tone.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with vintage accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you right now, it's not the same stuff they used on the vintage LED guitars.
No, it's not.
Not that same.
So the way I did that was I bought 50 LEDs and resistors on Amazon for not a lot of money, and I made a little wooden light bar. I drilled holes in it, and then I put all the LEDs in it, super glued them in.
How many did you get? 10?
I did 5.
Oh, okay.
Are in there.
You have to resistor those, you're saying?
Yeah, and then they have resistors, and then I wired it all up, and then epoxied the whole thing so that it wouldn't rattle apart, and then it goes to a 9-volt battery, and then I wired it up like you would wire up an EMG pickup set. I actually used some EMG parts to do it so that the ground is disconnected when there's no plug in the guitar. So when you plug it in, then it completes the circuit.
And that way the battery won't go
You're not
dead
killing
on
your
you either,
battery.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's unplugged.
No, that's really cool.
And and it was actually pretty easy. I watched a Crimson video recently
right.
where Ben was doing something very, very similar,
Fretboard,
only
yeah.
to a fretboard, but it was the same exact technology.
You had like the same little
He had the
LEDs
same
in
exact
there.
LEDs, only his were yellow or orange
Is
instead
it
of
an
red.
LED with the little black shrink tube on one of the legs?
Didn't even have that. I shrink tube them. Shrink tube
I
them.
believe it's shrinkage.
Shrink tube did that.
Shrinkage!
Shrinky dink.
Yeah, but my thing, mine actually looked cleaner than Ben's. He had a lot more stuff going on, but mine was a little bit neater in the end result.
So, you probably haven't seen this because it might be way before you ever watched any of my stuff. But there is a guitar builder, or there was a guitar builder in Las Vegas. I don't think he's building much anymore. Who wanted LEDs inside his pickups.
Okay.
So we literally took clear humbucker bobbins and drilled a hole in the center
Mhm.
of them, and then was able to fit an LED underneath underneath it, and they were color cycling. So as long as they were on, they would go from like green, blue, red, purple, like that.
I have a electric ice cube that does that.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly
It's kind of where I got the
same
idea for the whole
technology.
thing, yeah.
That's pretty
I
awesome.
should have just taken that apart.
And everybody always asks. And actually, I built another guitar for a kid in California. I did the same thing. And everybody always asks, doesn't it make noise? Doesn't it make noise? And if you wire it right and ground everything, it doesn't actually.
Yeah.
It's quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no noise coming in that guitar from any of that stuff. It all works.
No, it's just,
Yeah.
it's just like
It's just an LED.
It's 2 wires and 5 LEDs and
And
a
it's,
9 volt.
it's DC as well, so you don't
Yeah.
get the,
Yeah, yeah. It was fun to
frequency.
do too, and if I had to, if I was to redo that guitar, I probably would have put some of that stuff in before we put the top on.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then you could probably do some more fun kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that guitar was kind of a, as we went along kind of a project.
It wasn't
you know?
as built, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you
Yeah,
learned
so
It was
though.
originally gonna have fabric. The only thing was gonna be a hollow telly with a mud flap. That's about as far as we got.
We knew that was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Anyway, so yeah, but I thought the LED thing turned out good.
I got another question. And this is more of a technical, nerdy question.
I'm out.
Mercury EX says, do you know if the position of a truss rod nut has any impact on the ability of the rod to bend, heel access versus headstock access? Does it matter which way it faces for how good the thing's gonna work?
No, but the truss rod nut in the heel end, you have to remember that the truss rod, when you tighten the truss rod, it's going to put pressure on the wood in one spot as it presses down, and in 2 spots where it presses up if it's a 2-way, or it's going to impact the wood spacer in a certain way. It's only gonna impact in one area. Okay. So if you do it and it's a heel adjust, you're not moving the heel.
Okay.
So if you have this much truss rod nut and then so you have like a 1-inch truss rod nut, and then you have a 3-inch heel, you're not going to move that 2 inches of heel. It's only going to move the neck out. If the heel is here, it's only going to move the neck out in this area, and it's only going to do it in one spot. The thing about truss rods is, excuse me, the reason that they are sized in like 16, 17, 18-inch length is because they only work in one real spot. The middle of the rod is sometimes where the only place it's going to work. So if you want the most action from your truss rod, not action string height, if you want the most motion from your truss rod, it's going to be in the middle usually of that rod. And if that's not where you need the acting part, then you need to get a different length rod. Obviously, you can't do that. You can't just go get a new truss rod for your neck. But,
Right.
And truss rods is one of the, there's a lot of mojo about truss rods, and I spent the good part of many years using, testing, trying out, building my own, making truss rod, using every single truss rod I could find, I could get my hands on. And after Chris came on board to the shop, we were like, we have to standardize on a rod, because there's like a different truss rod in every guitar, and some of them there's a vintage single action rod, and some of them there's a Martin rod, which is basically a single acting rod that doesn't need a curved channel. And sometimes there's a 2-way rod, and sometimes there's a double acting rod, and sometimes there's this and that, and we had to standardize on something. So it was, what is the truss rod represents the engineering principle was, get the thing that does what you want that costs the least amount of money. So we settled on a truss rod that works, is easy to install, and we can buy a ton of them, and they're not very much when you buy them in bulk. So you can spend $30 on a truss rod. Now that's not a big deal if you're making one guitar, but if you're making 100 guitars, suddenly that's a significant amount of money tied up in
Yeah.
bits of metal welded together.
With really a very simple
Yeah,
process.
yeah.
You know,
It's not a very engineered object.
No.
It doesn't do a
No.
whole lot of stuff.
And we also settled on the two-way rod that we use now because it's considerably easier to install than a single acting rod, which doesn't really do a hell of a lot anyway. You found out how well our truss rods worked when you went, and then that
Yeah.
started
Truss
moving. Yeah. Single acting rods they work, and the reason people like them is because it takes away very little wood from my neck, man. And I've got to have as much wood in my neck, man, as I can get, and I can't have fine. So we'll put in a vintage rod for someone if they're willing to pay a premium for that.
If,
that installation.
For that installation.
those are the same people that want a really thin neck. I need as much wood, but.
No,
I
they're
need it as
usually
thin
Les
as I
Paul, like
can.
Les Paul and
Wow,
vintage
yeah.
Strat guys want the vintage rod because.
Well, I wish I'd have brought the
Vintage
telly you
sound.
made and had you put the wagon wheel on it for me.
The wagon.
Because it's why I got one of your older tellies
Yeah.
that has the heel adjustment, not the,
Well, but it has the heel adjustment, so we can't.
or it does have the two-way, you think,
It
still?
it absolutely.
Oh, it's
has
not the older,
two-way-
okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we've been using that two-way rod for years.
Oh, okay.
But we tried everything. Chris and I even made some rods, and it was like, this is dumb. We can't make our own truss rods. So when I was at Roberto Van, we made our own truss rods. We made our own everything.
So how does a double action truss rod? I mean, not a double action. If you put two of them in a guitar, then what?
Oh, like a Rickenbacker
Yeah.
with two
Yeah,
truss
what's
rods?
the point of that?
There is no point.
Doesn't one of them go one way and the other goes the other way? I don't know.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
But it would seem to me that if you want to stabilize, so all a truss rod does is hold a neck. It
Right.
doesn't move it. It doesn't fix the twist. It doesn't
Right.
fix the warp. All it does is hold a neck counter to the tension of the strings. So having two is a way to add some more metal in there, I guess, and that's a way to stabilize it. So what we do, I can't imagine you would put that on a guitar, have two truss rods. Some of those ricks have, the 4001s have two active rods. But what we do on bass rods, or on bass guitar necks, is we'll put a regular two-way truss rod and then we'll flank that with 1/8 by 1/4 by 2 foot long steel bars. So it's a way to just stabilize the neck and keep it from, and the truss rod still works.
So why do people go with? And this is me asking this.
Mm-hmm.
Why do people go with like fancy like carbon fiber, all that kind of stuff?
Well, so let me ask you this: is carbon fiber stronger than steel? I love this question, by the way.
So not really.
In certain instances, carbon fiber is
It depends what you
stronger
use it
and
for.
better and lighter than steel.
But if we're talking about 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch by 16 inches long, identical pieces,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who give me grief about this, and I'm like, well, why don't they make gun barrels out of carbon fiber? They wrap gun barrels with carbon
Right.
fiber, but
Now using it as a gusset or
Yeah.
some sort of like in a bicycle in the lug ends, strength to weight right there is really
Yeah.
high.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about just a straight rod of the same
And
diameter.
Chris, maybe you can comment on this too. There's carbon fiber, and then there's carbon fiber,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
just one. It's a universally known fact that all carbon fiber is identical. It's
no,
not.
no.
No. So carbon fiber would be used when size and weight is a thing in a guitar, just like anything else. So when we put steel bars in necks, they get significantly heavier. You can tell when you pick it up, it's like, oh, geez, this is heavy. But that adds a lot of sonic upsides too. You know what I mean? So it stabilizes the neck.
Wait. So the tone of the guitar isn't exactly only about the wood in that instance? Like,
No. You know how
taking
some
wood out of the neck
Yeah.
to make it better?
Yeah. Have you ever played a bass in like with a band and you're like, oh, when I ride that A string, I can't hear anything. Is that or this note disappears when I play it. When you
Right.
put steel rods in the neck, a lot of that stuff just goes away. So
Wow.
the notes ring out different. And Leo Fender knew about that. He used to, like, guys would come in, I can't hear this thing, and he'd add weights to the end of the guitar. That's where that whole, the headstock weight has to be this giant weight on the end of the headstock came from, because guys would hear Leo Fender would add weight to the end of the headstock, and he didn't do it because it sounded better. He did it to make things ring differently.
So like those guys that have that brass clampy thing on
Fat
it,
finger.
and yeah, that's what.
Remember the big plate that used to buy that would like match the outline of it and you put on
Yeah.
the back and yeah.
Mhm.
Or there was a while there were guys who were gluing coins onto the back of their necks. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Well, it makes it sound better. Well, what's the theory behind that? Why?
Right.
So yeah, so having a stable neck is the most important.
Kiesel puts 2 pieces of carbon fiber in every neck or
Yeah,
something, right?
Yeah, and that's cool. So you know what?
He uses the same rod we use, by the way.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And there's a lot of guys who use that.
Yeah,
So-
oh, yeah,
that's
yeah.
a pretty universal
Yeah.
rod. The one
Yeah.
But isn't it cool to be able to go, hey, our necks have 2 carbon fiber rods in it?
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So versus, hey, our necks have or I mean, some of this stuff is like it's a feature, right?
Right.
Hey, our necks have carbon fiber. Awesome. Our necks have a vintage. Oh, cool. Our necks have a great big bore. Oh, neat. It's way easier to do that than try to explain to people, well, this neck is made correctly. So you don't need any of that shit. You know?
I got a 5-piece neck.
Yeah.
I don't need that crap.
That's
And there's-
almost plywood, man.
It's almost plywood. Yeah, so carbon fiber can be used a lot of times to stiffen it, but it's not the same as steel. But if weight is an issue, and I get it, it's a thing, then use carbon fiber.
Awesome.
I think if he could get away with steel, he would use steel. Kiesel would.
Yeah,
But it's a weight thing.
Yeah, and so that's another way you can kind of mitigate some of that headstock breaking thing. Anything can break, right?
Right.
And an angled headstock is certainly more apt to breaking than a straight one. So adding some carbon fiber reinforcement, like the EDH guitars have carbon fiber
Maybe,
through,
yeah.
like they go through the headstock to kind of
Oh,
add
we
some
did that
stability
on a Les
Slaters.
Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another question for me and from me,
Mhm.
not from them. And one of the reasons I'm asking it is so that I can put Gibson in the title of this video.
Oh, okay, yeah, good,
Because
good.
that
good.
gets more clicks.
You can
So-
also put Fender and Kiesel.
I could. I want to understand. I already know because we discussed this earlier
Okay.
today, but I think the peoples would like to know
Okay.
why you like this weird peg head angle
Mhm.
that you like in comparison to the other brands, and why we talked about this earlier today.
Okay. It all started, so Chris and I have been building instruments for a long time, and eventually it occurred to us, hey, we should standardize some things, like
Right.
neck angles. And if we do that, we can make the same neck over and over and over again, and we can jig up to make that neck.
Really easy.
Yeah, because remember before then, they were all different.
They were all different.
They
We
were
had
all
the side
hand
blade,
done,
We had
yeah.
all these crazy things to make a neck, and it was way harder.
Yeah.
So
So we did this contest that Doug Cower from Cower Guitars did, and it was what was it called, Chris? Just tell everyone what that was.
the contest, it was Offset Guitar Forum, 400, excuse me, $400 guitar challenge, and the challenge was you had to build a guitar that had American-made pickups. It could even just be one pickup, but it had to be American-made. And all of the parts of the guitar couldn't add up to more than $400.
Ooh, yeah. Who won that
labor,
contest?
Labor was free. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, labor was free, and it didn't take me long to figure out, well, if labor's free, I can dazzle them with, a bunch of fancy stuff. So I did a carved top double neck. And this was the first guitar that I built all on my own with Matt. We'd been doing stuff, but
Yeah.
it was the first time that I did every single step. Because sometimes Matt just does stuff because Matt was around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, would you do this?
Yeah.
Or it would just happen. But anyway, this is
Well,
the first
I was
guitar.
working on
Yeah,
I had
you
an
also-
entry as well.
Yeah, and you bowed out when it became pretty obvious that we were dominating the.
It was
thing.
like cheating.
Yeah, it really was. But I have always said that I wouldn't have built much less of a guitar even if it wasn't in the shop. It just would have taken triple the amount of time.
Yeah.
But anyway, So one of we went and bought cheap wood,
Mm-hmm.
and I could save some money with the double neck. I had to save every penny I could for all the hardware, and instead of buying, I think 8-quarter maple for necks, we
What,
bought
6-quarter, I think?
6-quarter
Yeah.
for maple for necks, and decided, well, let's see if we can,
Right,
you know,
headstocks.
change the headstock angle a little bit. Let's see what we can get away with. The whole idea was, what can we learn from this project?
Yeah, we
That's
switched,
also
we
when
switched paints and we stopped using acrylic and nitrocellulose lacquer.
But anyway, you were kind of, you know, on the, I think, going towards an angle that you thought was proper,
Mhm.
and we shallowed it up even more. I
We
think
tried to
did
see
a-
what's the least amount of angle we
Yeah.
could get away with, and what was it?
it
2
was
degrees.
2.
Yeah.
It actually worked fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, you can't really, say, oh, we got a 2-degree headstock.
2-degree headstock
Yeah,
angle.
it's
What'd you
Now,
settle on?
7?
It's 7-degree now.
And where did that come from?
Well, so we settled on 7-degree because, chiefly, we could buy 8-quarter lumber, which is 2 inches tall, and we could with our headstock, we could get the full headstock into the piece of 2-inch material, which gets machined down. It's 1 3/4 roughly after millwork. Is that right, babe?
It depends on the species and the grade,
Okay.
but pretty much.
Okay,
yeah.
so if you imagine the pieces 1 3/4 inches thick, we could put our 7-degree angle in there and still have a 1/2 inch plus headstock thickness when it was all said and done with a piece of 8-quarter material. And then it occurred to me, hey, somebody else did that. Who was it? And it was one of my favorite guitar designers of all time, Dan Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, I wonder why Dan Armstrong did it. And if you were to ask me, I don't know, but I imagine that Dan Armstrong is smarter than me. In 1968, figured out, hey, if we go with 7 degrees, we can make it out of a piece of 8-quarter. So.
And the other part of this is, neither one of us are really fond of scarf joints.
No.
And,
Yeah, don't leave your scarf joint in a hot car.
Yeah.
yeah, well, I just hate the way it looks.
Yeah.
And so.
Especially
there's a way
on
to hide
a
it.
shallow one like that, because it goes
Yeah.
way into the
Oh,
neck.
Yeah, and you're not a fan of 17-degree headstocks for
Or
obvious
14.
reasons, or 14 or any of that
Yeah.
other stuff. I'm a firm believer that when a guitar sits flat on a
A surface.
surface,
Mhm.
on a
It
flat
should sit
surface,
flat.
it should sit
Yeah.
flat. It shouldn't sit on the headstock.
There shouldn't be a big
Shouldn't
gap
be a big
under the
gap
body.
under
yeah.
the body,
Yeah.
and,
So that's why
and
they
sitting
break
on
up.
the headstock.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, as
isn't
they
there a big
fall.
a company that
There's some other
headstocks
company. I
can't
constantly
remember who it
break?
is, but yeah.
And they've played around, and the funny thing is you say, oh, that guitar, because we had what was that, a 78
Yeah.
in here that the neck had actually broken out
the
of the
neck,
guitar.
the neck busted through the body, and broke in the cutaway. It was a Les Paul Custom.
Yeah.
Headstock was fine. Neck was 3-piece and had a volute. Now, volute is a bad word at Gibson, but
This was during the volute era. But
yeah,
anyway.
this was the Norland era.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't 78, was it?
I thought it was 76.
I don't. Yeah.
Hey, it was right in there.
It started
It
with
was Norland
197,
75?
and then there was another number.
Yeah, 75, maybe, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
you said, well, it's got a 17-degree head angle, and comment, those are the 14-degree head angle days.
Fine.
All right,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, like that's gonna make
Yeah,
that.
that made all the
yeah.
difference in the world.
Yeah.
But, it still didn't sit flat. And the funny thing to me is, and I could be wrong about this, I don't see a lot of acoustic guitars with broken headstocks once they're out in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are, but yeah.
Acoustic Gibsons,
Yeah.
falling over, and that's because it doesn't land on the headstock. It
Because the
lands
body's
on the body.
4 inches thick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's more a matter of leverage than
It's
anything.
exactly
When-
leverage.
When I was building like
Big
a
old heavy lever on the
boatload
end
of,
it.
yeah. When I was making a bunch of Les Paul style guitars, everyone wanted 14, 17-degree headstock. So what I would do before I would glue the fretboards on, I would fix the necks. So I would route channels around the truss rod and inlay wood in, and have it go all the way through the headstock, and then put a headstock veneer on and glue my fretboard down, and it would hide all that stuff. You ever seen like Les Pauls with broken necks, and then they
Yeah,
route
they fix
those-
it after,
those-
yeah.
those struts
So you were
on-
just
on
basically doing it
I would
before.
do it before, yeah.
Yeah, no, interesting.
which is good. That means yours will fall over, probably not break
Yeah.
the first time.
And then there were some that we took regular big chunks of mahogany and routed like a 3/4 inch channel as deep as we could go and backfilled it with maple all the way through the headstock to do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, yeah, so there's a lot of people who do stuff like that, so.
Well, cool, you guys. This is usually about as long as we make these things.
Oh, okay.
So, I appreciate you sitting in. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
How many dollars in super chat did you get for taking off your hat?
You don't want to know.
Okay. Well, I do.
Let's just say I don't have to take my hat off.
Okay.
Maybe today's just not the day.
Today's not the day.
Okay.
That's okay. Maybe my hair's not crazy and long enough yet.
My hair.
No. So anyway, thanks so much. There's going to be a couple more, 2 or 3 more videos coming out about the week here at Texas Toast because we're not done.
Is there
No.
a special video tomorrow?
Maybe. We're working on something for tomorrow. We'll see what happens with that.
We do have a reveal video maybe you can help us with before you leave.
Okay.
Because the guitar's already sold, but we need to
Yeah.
do a reveal video.
Make everyone else jealous that they
Yeah.
didn't buy it.
Yeah.
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 It would make me do a thing I don't normally do, so that would be
Okay.
cool. Play E and G's.
Yeah. I thought you liked it.
No.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so that would be fun. I would be
Cool.
down with that. Thanks for hanging out, y'all, and
Thanks,
we'll
guys.
see you next time.
See you tomorrow.